Hey, it's Ted McGrath, and welcome to today's show. So I'm going to jump in. We're going to talk about BMNR. BlackRock just increases their position on BMNR. Goldman Sachs just comes out with a big truth and fact that they own more Bitcoin and Ethereum than gold. And we're going to get into Fong Lee's statement about MSTR and the future of the actual stock. And I'm also going to share my exact game plan for investing in MSTR and BMNR, and how my investment and trading strategy is operating right now, considering we're in more of a bearish market. So none of this is tax advice, financial advice, or legal advice. I am going to show you some technical analysis on charts that are super accurate, and I'm going to walk you through that today. So stick around for that. But without further ado, let's jump in and let's talk about what is happening with BMNR first, and we'll look at Ethereum in terms of the staking that's going place on the network. Okay, so when you look at $72 billion that's locked, Ethereum staking has hit record highs in terms of staking, despite a 60% crash. So let's take a look into this right now in terms of the milestone that Ethereum's just crossed. We're not out of the woods yet, of course, and we could have major downside still. But at the end of the day, I want to just look at what's happening long term, and then I'll go into the short term technical analysis of how I'm trading and investing. Okay, so over 30% of all circulating ETH is now officially staked. That's nearly 1/3 of supply that's locked up right now. And it's happening during this big price dump that we've seen in Ethereum as well as Bitcoin. And we got record staking and record illiquidity, which is actually pretty interesting. So according to the validator Q, 37 million of ETH is staked. That's roughly 30% of the total supply. And if you look at Ethereum's staking ratio, it surpassed 30%, marking an all-time high of staking, which is interesting for the long-term perspective of Ethereum. And you can see here on the chart the total value that's actually staked, which if you look at the left, it says 37 million. So it's worth about $72 billion. And then the yield that people get when they're staking is under 3% right now. So for example, when you look at BMNR, if BMNR is staking X amount of dollars, they're getting a 3% yield on it. That's why you see the income coming into BMNR from their staking is pretty significant. So here's the other kicker. Another $8 billion worth of Ethereum is waiting in the validator entry queue right now. So a significant amount of Ethereum is being staked on the network. That's a record backlog. Investors are voluntarily locking coins despite the price weakness. Now, this is interesting, right? We got major price weakness. We got major bearish sentiment. We got major fear going on in the marketplace, but a lot of investors are locking up and staking their ETH. So price has collapsed. That's no news. I'm going to show you in just a moment how I'm actually making decisions on a weekly basis around Bitcoin, Ethereum, MSTR, and BMNR, and how I'm investing right now. And I'm going to show you charts that are super accurate, but none of that changes the fact that the long-term viewpoint of Ethereum is, in terms of people who are staking, is bullish. The short-term is obviously very bearish. So Ethereum's trading around 2,000. It dropped down to about 1,950 today. This was the other day. If you looked at Friday, we ran up to about 2,050. Saturday, we ran up to 2,100 on Ethereum. It's down 60% from its August peak, well below 2021 bull market highs. And this comes during the broader crypto downturn that's erased about $2 trillion from the total market since October. But even more interesting, you've got major insiders also that have sold tokens. So you have Ethereum's co-founder Vitalik Buterin and Avi's founder Stani Kulichov. They have sold tokens. So Buterin says that Ethereum's foundation is entering a mild austerity phase, which means they're economizing and they're saving right now, so they're economizing on spending, and that the sales are funding new initiatives. So the bottom line is, even though you have that news, big money is still positioning, and I'm going to show you how in the crypto marketplace right now. Again, none of this changes the bearish short-term sentiment and the price collapse. I'm just going to show you a long-term perspective, and then I'm going to show you how to handle the bearish perspective of what's going on right now and the bearish reality and what I'm doing, because it is super bearish, and I'm going to show you what I'm doing. Okay. So Bitcoin just staked another 282 million. It's now got 6 billion locked. That's 69% of its Ethereum holdings are staked. All right. So if you look at this, this is a Whale Deegan posted this. Tom Lee's BitMine keeps buying Ethereum, another 140,000 ETH, 282 million staked in the past few hours. That brings BitMine's total staked Ethereum to 2.97 million ETH. That's 6 billion plus. now nearly 70% of their entire stack locked and earning yield. So this is a long-term conviction in the marketplace of what they're doing. Now, if you're new to the channel and you're like, I want to understand more about how BMNR works, I want to understand more about MSTR or Ethereum, you can go snag my book down below for free. It's called Money Game. I also have my weekly trading strategy and daily trading strategy down below that shows you exactly what I'm doing on a daily and week-to-week basis. So you can snag that down below, okay? And I'm going to show you what I'm doing on a weekly basis in this video. Down below shows you the daily trading strategy. So if we get back to this, this is 100% showing the conviction that BMNR has in staking its Ethereum and also its long-term belief in the Ethereum network. Now, if you take a look here, Tom Lee continues to call for a V-shaped recovery, noting this is the 8th 50% correction since 2018 for Ethereum. Now, Tom Lee's predictions have been off just like the rest of the marketplace. I mean, I think 99.9% of the marketplace was wrong in October, November, and December and what they were thinking. He continues to be bullish for the long term. Of course, he's the BMNR, master, so to speak, and in charge. But at the end of the day, you got to be very careful of, what anybody's saying right now for the short term or for the short term. I believe the long term is very, very bullish for Ethereum, BMNR, MSTR, and Bitcoin. I still maintain that. But in the short term, I don't think anybody really knows what's going to happen. So he's just pointing out data here that this is the 8th 50% correction since 2018. My personal viewpoint is we could go lower on Ethereum. We saw it touch about 1,800 recently, but we could definitely go lower, and BMNR could go lower. So if you also look at this long-term bullishness, you got Goldman Sachs disclosed over $1 billion in Ethereum ETF exposure in its latest SEC filing. So when you look at Goldman Sachs, they just declared they now hold more Bitcoin and Ethereum than gold. And so if you take a look at their Bitcoin holdings and their Ethereum holdings, you see that right here on the chart. It's about 1.06 billion for Bitcoin, 1.01 billion for ETH, and then gold is 939 million. So it shows long-term institutional conviction in crypto right now, particularly Bitcoin and Ethereum from Goldman Sachs. So that is big news. Institutions aren't stepping away. They're definitely structuring their exposure differently. And what this really means is 1/3 of the supply is illiquid and exchange balances continue to shrink. So when we talk about Ethereum, we're talking about an illiquid supply right now. So more ETH is being removed from circulation because of the staking. So even as the price struggles, you see ETH being staked, which shows long-term conviction in the network. So ultimately, as I'm looking at this, long-term Bitcoin is still very, very strong. Ethereum is very strong, MSTR, BMNR, and that's 4, 5, 6, 7 year time horizons. In the short term, I don't think you can argue with the fact that it's a train wreck right now, and nobody expected this to happen, and it is happening, and the price has been dropping. All right. So long term, you do need to look at this, and I would be looking at this from a long term viewpoint. I still have big conviction in Ethereum and MSTR and BMNR and Bitcoin, but ultimately I'm making different moves in the short term, and I'll show you that in just a second. Okay. So you got a strange dynamic going on right now. The price is weak, the supply is tightening, but long-term capital is locking in. All right. So historically, these supply compressions don't show up immediately in the price. So basically what that means is when you have a lot of ETH being staked and 30% of all the Ethereum is being staked in the network, that means when demand does return, when Ethereum's staked, it means it's more illiquid. Right? There's not as much ETH in the marketplace for people to buy because it's locked up and it's staked. So with the supply being more and more staked, that means there's more and more illiquidity. So when demand does return, the price is more likely to move up at a faster pace because of this. So BlackRock also, this is big news. They increased their Bitmine stake to 9 million shares, which is totally fascinating as well. What does that mean? Smart money isn't leaving crypto. It's just repositioning. So according to a recent 13F filing, BlackRock has increased its stake to over 9 million shares. So when you look at this here, this is BMNR Bulls. BlackRock just aggressively increased its position, now holding 9 million shares. That's a 165% increase quarter over quarter, $246 million disclosed value. This is definitely not passive exposure. This is conviction capital. And it's very interesting to see the moves that the whales are making right now. And you can see that this report is released right here, which is interesting. So retail traders focus on red candles. the world's largest asset manager is accumulating infrastructure right now. And we are seeing lots of repositioning. We're seeing money shifting hands from weak hands to long-term holders on this, which we're seeing BlackRock and Goldman get in the game heavily. So it's not random. It's definitely very strategic. The bigger context is Wall Street is definitely not done, because you see by the actions they're taking, they're not done. And this move comes after BlackRock's dominance in the ETF marketplace. So they're stacking up on BMNR. We know the moves that BlackRock's been making this entire year. So they definitely have long-term bullishness in terms of Ethereum, in terms of Bitcoin, in terms of BMNR. Okay. The iShares Bitcoin Trust surpassed $70 billion in assets, one of the fastest ETF growth stories in history. So now they're increasing exposure to the operational layer of crypto, which is basically by investing in BMNR, which is what BlackRock is doing. They're increasing their exposure to the crypto network, or the blockchain network, you could say. And they're showing their conviction by putting more money into BMNR. Goldman Sachs has showed their conviction by putting more money into Bitcoin and Ethereum than they have in gold. And so you see large institutions are big into the crypto marketplace, and they are not backing off despite the fact that the price sucks right now. So the question is, when all this stuff is happening, what do you do in the short term? This is not tax advice, financial advice, or legal advice. I'm just going to show you what I'm doing and give you a perspective that I think is going to be super, super, super helpful. I'm going to give you the short-term version and show you some technical analysis of how I'm making investment decisions and trading decisions on BMNR, MSTR, and Bitcoin on a weekly basis. If you want the in-depth version, you can go down below and you can grab my book for free, and also a free trading strategy down below. Just watch what it is. It's like a 20-minute video down below. I'm going to give you the 4 or 5 minute condensed version right now. For those of you who are super interested, you can get it for free down below. And just snag it and it's yours. Okay. But now let me just get in and just show you what I'm doing, because during these times where, I was expecting Bitcoin and MSTR to go to the moon, we didn't see that happen. So I've adjusted my strategy in terms of how I'm trading on a weekly basis. I'm back in the game trading MSTR again. I've been trading BMNR for the last 6 months. And I'm trading MSTR again on a weekly basis. I'm going to show you exactly what I'm doing here. So this technical analysis comes from TradingView, and it also comes from James at Invest Answers. I'm showing you how I'm using it and how I set up the charts. And I found a gold mine in terms of what I'm doing with BMNR and also with MSTR per the technical analysis here, and how I'm actually utilizing these charts. So shout out to TradingView, shout out to James at Invest Answers. If you want to get access to charts like this, you go to TradingView, you go to Invest Answers. That's how you get access. I'm just going to show you how I'm trading. Okay. So when you look at these charts right now, let's take a look at the first thing. In fact, I can show you MSTR right now, and I can show you the actual charts of how I'm moving with these charts here. So if you look here on this chart, let's get over here for a second. Okay, so if you look here on this chart, this is a chart of MSTR, and then I'll show you also a chart of what I'm doing as it relates to BMNR, and then I'll show you Bitcoin and Ethereum over the weekend, which is fascinating, okay? So when you look at this chart right here, this shows you trading MSTR on a 2-hour basis or a 4-hour time frame. Now, one of the big misunderstoods that people have is they think if they're going to make decisions on trading MSTR BMNR that they have to be glued to the charts. And when you're trading on the 2-hour, it really means you need to look at the charts every 2 hours. And when you look at these charts, you see that trades don't come through every day. Like on average for MSTR, trades come through where I would be taking a trade every 2 to maybe 6 days. So this doesn't require being glued to the charts at all and the screens. And it's a very, very simple trading strategy that I'm using here. Now, if you look here on MSTR, this is the date. If you go down, put your eyes down here where I'm drawing, this is Tuesday, February 10th. So when I get out of the trade on MSTR, it's when the blue goes to yellow. It is not more complex than this. Now, the setup that I have is pretty dope on this in terms of how simple I've made this. And I found this gem in terms of trading it. But again, the technical charts, if you want them, you go to TradingView and you go to Invest Answers. I get no benefit for you going to buy stuff from them. I'm just telling you what I'm using because I want to help you. All right. So here, I would have gotten out of this trade here. And it was when MSTR was at $132. Now, if you look here, you don't get out of the trade when you're seeing like just a little bit of like yellowish come in, because it's not definitive enough for me to make a decision. I get out of the trade when I see like it's a thicker yellow here. And if you look at that price point, I would have gotten out around $132 on MSTR and rode it all the way down. Now, I did ride this trade all the way down, and it went down to about $122,000. So this here shows you like you ride it down. The yellow, you just stay out of MSTR. And then when it goes back to blue, you would get in. And so if you look at the time horizon on this, put your attention right down here. Super important data. I can't tell you like how damn good this is right now. So put your attention here. If you go down, the date is down below. It shows you February 10th. And right around here on February 11th, it goes yellow, like it's thick yellow here. So you get out of the trade. And that's when I got out of the MSTR trade. And then it goes all the way down here. And I would not have gotten back into the trade until February 13th on Friday. Make sense? So that's what the basic technical analysis is showing on this. And if you look at that here, again, getting out of the trade is $132 price point of MSTR. And then it drops all the way down to $121,000 here. Well, you'll see here, drops down to about 124, and there's no indicator to get back until 125. So you get out at 132 and you get back in per this around 125, 126. So that gain right there on being out of that trade is what? That's about a 5% gain or so if you stayed out of that trade. And that's over the course of 2 or 3 days. Now, that's if you're holding MSTR long term, you're selling out high, buying back low, and picking up more shares of it. So that's a play on MSTR. And if you look at this, this is not like a one-off where you see this, like, look how consistent this is. So if you go back to this date here on MSTR and you bought in an MSTR here, this was, remember we had the bottom on this on February 6th on a Friday where things just started tanking. So this is Thursday, February 5th. When we had this just big drop, remember, and MSTR went down to about 105. So you can see the price point here is about 107. And then it tells you to get back into MSTR here around 116. And then you would have gotten back in and rode that trade all the way up here to price point of 133 on MSTR. So, you know, it's very, very accurate. And this is the 2-hour time frame. So these are the decisions that I'm making on MSTR now. I'm still a believer in MSTR in the long term, but I'm trading it so I can get in, get out, make more money, and also pick up more shares of MSTR. So that is this. This has been a change in my strategy with MSTR because I'm no longer just sitting there holding it passively. I'm picking up more shares of it and also trading it and making more money based on its volatility right now. And in the long term, I'm still bullish in terms of holding MSTR and, you know, what it's going to do in 4, 5, 6 years, right? So this is a new development for me in the last couple of weeks of MSTR. We're going to go over to BMNR now and show you BMNR. I've been trading this for 5 to 6 months. I'm going to show you how accurate these charts are in BMNR. Again, if you want to look at if you want to get a really good in-depth deep dive of this, you can go down below and get my entire trading strategy for free. That shows you more in depth on this, how I do it on a daily basis, but how I also do it on the 2-hour time frame. And the 2-hour time frame is what I'm really focused on right now because these charts are super accurate. So if you look at BMNR, you're looking at these time frames here, and you look at these trend lines, and you do the same thing on BMNR as what I'm doing as I am on MSTR. I'm following the 2-hour charts, and if you look at these 2-hour charts here, this would have been February 6th, which was a signal here. When yellow goes to blue, you buy back into BMNR. This is just hypothetical teaching, not financial advice, but this is what I'm doing, okay? So now BMNR was at about this point where it tells you to buy back in. It's about $18.82. And then you ride it all the way up, and you see it starts to turn yellow here at $20.77. So buying in and selling out, that's, you know, that's almost, if you look at that from 8, the price point here on February 6th is about $18.70. And then you would have sold out here at about $20.50. So that's what? That's like a 9% gain over the course of about 10 days. So here where it starts is about February 6th, and where you would have sold out of BMNR would have been on February 10th. So 4 days. It's a 4-day. Again, this is on the 2-hour time frame. So you're placing trades anywhere 2 to 6 days. So this is a 4-day trade, and it's a 9% win on BMNR. 9% win. All right. So that's big. Very, very big. And then it would have told you to get out. So if you got out of the trade here around $20.55, and you ride it all the way down. Now, these little blue lines here, they're not big enough and thick enough to say I'm going to get back in or get out of the trade. So here, you just ignore the blue line here because it's not big enough. I only get in when it's a definitive thick line. So I would have rode this all the way down here, and then I would have waited for it to go blue here and got back in the trade around $19.83. So you get out here around $20.44 or $20.56, and you get back in around $19.88. Not as big of a win, but maybe like a 3% pickup of more shares from February 13th all the way to February 10th. So 3 days, it's a 3% increase in more shares. So this is the basic strategy that I'm using with BMNR. You can see how the charts are super accurate on BMNR. You can see it trade, and I'm just trading the trend lines, right? And look at this one. This is an insane one. If you look here on BMNR, this is like a crazy one. So you look here on BMNR, and this is like getting, this is an indicator to get out of BMNR when it was about $28.59, and you would have stayed out of the trade all the way here. Stayed out of the trade on $28.59. You would have stayed out of the trade until BMNR came back to $18 and about 89 cents. So you would have gotten out at $28 back in at $18.80. So this is how accurate these 2-hour trend lines are. This is how I'm playing moves right now to make more money and also pick up more shares. And this is what I'm sharing with you right now. And you can even look at it like I'm not trading BTC or Ethereum right now, but you can look at the trend lines of BTC, and they're not as accurate because there's a lot more movement in them. But these are indicators you can look at for like, okay, what's MSTR going to do? And I watched the Bitcoin 2-hour charts as well of what MSTR might be doing. And you're watching over the weekend how this is Friday, how Bitcoin, the trend line was like, okay, stay in the trade for Bitcoin. And then the weekend hits. And on the weekend, it's like now it's getting bearish here where you see the yellow and Bitcoin starts to drop here. Okay, so we'll see how we open up on Tuesday because the markets are closed on Monday. But this is just great technical analysis. Again, one does not have to be a daily day trader on this stuff. I'm placing trades on this with MSTR right now every 2 to 5 days. And just, I buy in, I sell out, I buy in, I sell out. And this is just great freaking technical analysis. It's just super, super accurate. All right. So with that, again, kudos on that. Always give credit to where credit is due. 100% these chart trading view. That's what I'm using. And then I'm using Invest Answers. And I get no financial benefit if you go buy and subscribe to their stuff. I'm just telling you this because that's the technical analysis that I'm using. If you want my trading strategy of how I'm doing it and what I'm trading on MSTR and BMNR, that's down below. You can grab that. It's 100% free and shows you, gives you my book for free. And it also gives you my trading strategy down below for free, more in depth than what I just showed you right now. Okay. So you can snag that. We're also going to take a look right now at what's been going on with MSTR, and we're going to shift to a long-term viewpoint. So if you're just joining us, what I talked about was BMNR and Ethereum and how a lot of the ETH is being staked right now. 30% of the Ethereum supply is being staked, which shows long-term conviction of people who are holding ETH in the network. We just talked about how BlackRock has bought more BMNR and increased their position on BMNR to 9 million shares. And then we also just talked about how Goldman Sachs now owns more Bitcoin and more Ethereum than they do actually gold. So there's long-term conviction in the network. And what I just shared is how I'm trading the bearish sentiment that's taking place in the network right now because nobody feels good short term. So right now I'm taking advantage of the short-term volatility so that I can increase my shares of MSTR and BMNR and also make more money trading it. So that's what I'm doing right now. If you're just new to my channel, I've been trading BMNR for 6 months MSTR, I'm back in the game trading it as of the last 2 weeks. So I've shifted my strategy around it. Long term, I'm still bullish. I will still continue to invest in Bitcoin and MSTR and Ethereum and BMNR by picking up more shares of it. But in the short term, I'm trading the heck out of it. All right. So now we're going to go over to Fong Lee and we're going to look at MSTR from a long-term perspective, because Fong Lee was just interviewed on a certain news channel, and we're going to get his viewpoint on MSTR in the long term and really an understanding of what MSTR is, because if you look at MSTR over a 4, 5, 6 year time horizon, it's a phenomenal stock from my viewpoint. BMNR, same thing, phenomenal. Conviction from institutions long-term in Bitcoin and Ethereum is very, very strong, but in the short term, it's a mess. So I'm not going to sidestep that. All right. So now we're going to get into taking a look at a little message from Fong Lee here, and let's hear what he has to say.
Shareholders, you're speaking to them right now. What is your message to your investors?
My message is to hold on. Right, we've been through Bitcoin downturns in the past. In 2022, Bitcoin got up to 68K, went down to 16. That was a 75% drawdown. Now Bitcoin went up to 125K, got down to 60. That's a 50% drawdown. 7 years from now, when Bitcoin's at $1 million and goes to 750K, it'll be a 25% drawdown. Everyone will think it's the end of Bitcoin. And I'll say, hold on then too.
What if it doesn't go to $1 million, Fong? What if it goes to 10,000 instead?
Well, first of all, I don't think Bitcoin will go down to $10,000. I think it's extremely unlikely. What's happening with Bitcoin right now is the government's fully behind it. We have a Bitcoin president. We have a Bitcoin head of the SEC, head of the Treasury. We have Bitcoin head of the CFTC. So the regulatory issues that I think 5 years ago people worried about Bitcoin are gone. I think Bitcoin is a technological transformation as digital capital. I don't think it's going to go down $10,000.
Right, but you're running a business where you kind of have to have a strategy for that. No pun intended. As I understand, I was looking through it a little bit last night. The $17 billion loss in the quarter, of course, was before crypto fell. Bitcoin fell to almost below 60. Can you comment on what the loss is for the current quarter?
Yeah, it's a gap loss, right? And you know, if you look on our website, we have information on the loss, but those are really just gap mark-to-market losses. It's really not a true cash loss for the company. If Bitcoin goes down to $8,000 for 5 years, maybe then we start to have issues around whether we need to sell Bitcoin. But the gap loss isn't really something we're concerned about.
And is that because you have $2 billion or so in cash on the balance sheet? Did I see that correctly?
Yeah, we have a fortress balance sheet, and I think that's sometimes a misconception that we have high leverage. I'll start with, we have about 10% leverage. I think it's 12% if you look at our website and our metrics today. Average S&P 500 AAA rated investment grade company has 20% leverage. We're half of that. In addition to your point, we have $2.25 billion of cash in our balance sheet. We put that on our balance sheet so we could have a digital fortress to back up our dividend payments. So exactly your point, not worried about the leverage, not worried about our dividend payments, not concerned about Bitcoin price right now. You have drawdowns like you did earlier the week.
Investors are. I'm sorry to jump in. Investors are. The stock fell 17% yesterday. It's making more than that up today. I've been following Michael and MicroStrategy and now Strategy for 20 years since it began. It's obviously changed dramatically. What then are investors and short sellers getting wrong? What's the wrongest thing they've got in their thesis around strategy?
There's two things. One, there are people who do not believe in Bitcoin as a long-term digital sovereign store of value. And you can have that debate for hours, and many have had that. I'll put that aside. If you believe in Bitcoin, what investors don't quite understand is we're leveraged, amplified Bitcoin. We're built to outperform Bitcoin on a Bitcoin per share basis. All right, so if you like Bitcoin, then you should like, if you want something that's leveraged and amplified, right? And that's what most businesses are. They're leveraged off of a certain commodity. They're leveraged off of a certain product. That's what we are. We're leveraged Bitcoin. I don't think people understand. Some folks are like, hey, you should be just trading at Bitcoin value. We provide value on top of Bitcoin.
And yet
we innovate. We create new products.
Sorry about that, Fong. It must be frustrating because if your average price is 76, I'm sure you'd love to be buying in the 50s, right? If you're bullish on Bitcoin, you want a lower cost basis. So what do you do about that? If the strategy is still to be long Bitcoin, assuming the price appreciation continues, but you can't buy when it falls, certainly below these levels.
No, I don't think that's, well, first of all, that's not true. The average price that we bought Bitcoin at, $76,000, it's just a line in the sand, right? It's just a marker. It doesn't, what we look at is it accretive to buy Bitcoin? And it's accretive to buy Bitcoin when we're trading above the asset value of Bitcoin. That's what's accretive. So the average price of Bitcoin isn't exactly the indicator of when we'll buy Bitcoin or not.
What would be the indicators? Just say that again. And can you comment on whether you're buying right now?
Oh, I can't comment on whether we're buying right now, but you can assume we're buying often, right? We've bought every single quarter since we started the strategy. It's primarily whether it's accretive to Bitcoin per share for our shareholders, right? And that's why we have products like Stretch. So it's not just about issuing equity. It's about.
So I think this is just an important part. We'll put it back on in a second, but I think that when you're watching this interview from people on the news, you're getting people that have large misunderstoods on what strategy's actually doing. And so the guy who's interviewing brings up a really good point. Well, what about the investors? The investors are down right now. And that's real. It's a really good question. What Fong Lee's coming back with, and then the woman goes to follow up and ask a question, you can see that she clearly does not understand the vocabulary that he's using, because she's talking about, well, wouldn't you like to buy Bitcoin at $50,000? And the viewpoint that strategy has on this is they're going to be buying Bitcoin at 70,000, 80,000, 100,000, 200,000, 300,000, 400,000, 500,000. They're going to continue to buy Bitcoin. And so there's just a longer term viewpoint that a company like Strategy is taking on this. And she doesn't understand when he uses the word, when it's accretive for shareholders, it means that they're issuing equity in the marketplace, common shares in the marketplace. And they're doing it when it's accretive for shareholders, meaning that the stock is trading at a premium to the net asset value of the Bitcoin. And so when you have people who are coming on who are interviewing people like Fong Lee, who has a great understanding of what the company's doing, and you have an interviewer who doesn't have that, it creates confusion and misunderstoods in the marketplace. It doesn't change the fact that the stock is tanked. It doesn't change the fact that the stock is down. If you're just joining us, I just showed my entire trading strategy for Strategy and what I'm doing in the short term to pick up more shares and make money with it. But at the end of the day, you have people interviewing these experts in the space who are looking at this from a 4, 5, 6, 7 year time horizon. And the price point of the average price that Strategy's bought Bitcoin at, which is $76,000, he calls it a line in the sand, because it's just, that's what it is. It's like whether we buy it at 76,000, 70,000, 80,000, 90,000, 100,000, we're looking to buy it in a way where when the stock is trading at a premium and is trading at a premium to the net asset value of the Bitcoin that they hold, they're going to issue more shares in the marketplace. And in doing that, they're going to pick up more Bitcoin per share, which is accretive for the shareholders. And so if one were to hold Bitcoin and buy one Bitcoin this year, at the end of the year, they have one Bitcoin. With Strategy's picking up more Bitcoin. And if you look at Strategy in 2025, Strategy increased the Bitcoin per share by 23%. So if one was buying into Strategy, they don't just have one Bitcoin per se, they have 23% more by holding the actual shares in the stock. And this is what he's trying to communicate. And it's a concept that a lot of people don't actually understand. And then they go, well, if you're issuing shares, it's dilutive to shareholders. Yes, but in the short term, it is, because you're issuing more shares. There's more supply of shares in the marketplace. But ultimately, what's really happening is, because they're issuing the shares at a premium to the net asset value of the Bitcoin, they're getting more Bitcoin per share. And that is the basic concept of how they're operating in terms of issuing common shares in the marketplace. Now, when you look at their other vehicles, which is why Strategy becomes such a dominant force in the marketplace, such as Stretch, when they're doing that, they're not issuing common shares in the marketplace. They have products like Stride and Strife and Stretch is a preferred instrument that they're issuing out in the marketplace. And when they're going to do that, that's not actually diluting shares in terms of common shares in the marketplace. They actually have another vehicle to actually raise money, and then they take that money and they buy more Bitcoin. So it's a very versatile company that has a lot of different ways to raise money. And so when you see this interviewer asking him questions right now, she's asking him questions from a very limited perspective. And you'll see in a second, I think she asked another question and then she starts to trip up a little bit on her words. No disrespect to her or anything. I'm just saying this is the facts of what's happening, because she does not understand. All right. So you have like two different viewpoints. One is a highly expert understood viewpoint, which is that of Fong Lee. And one is that of an interviewer who has a very limited framework on what's actually happening here. And this is what creates confusion in the marketplace. Doesn't change the fact that the strategy stock is down drastically right now. It's tanking. It sucks for the shareholders. It's total shit. Nobody likes it. But looking from a long-term perspective, this is what he is communicating in the marketplace. This is why they continue to buy Bitcoin. And so you're going to hear more from him here in just a second. And I think it's important to really understand this at a deep level, because this is important stuff.
But issuing digital credit, which is what our stretch product is. And anytime we can issue that, it's accretive to our shareholders to buy Bitcoin.
And finally, Fong, I've seen, Jim Cramer and others have been, I can't say that I understand it completely, but would issuing zero coupon convertibles or something like that be a strategy through a time like this, or no?
No, what our strategy is to issue digital credit, right? Hal Finney, who
and even this concept of like issuing convertibles is such an old concept. Like this is something that strategy stopped doing. Like when did they do their last convertible? A long time ago. That is not their strategy anymore. And it's this framework of traditional finance and new digital finance. And this is just a new thing that strategy is doing. I totally get the interviewer. She just doesn't understand. She should go get my book down below, because it literally breaks down strategy and exactly what the company is. And one has to study this company for a long period of time to really get it. And she doesn't get it, right? She just doesn't get it. So it's okay. That's why he's there. But like, it's just very interesting to see the interview. It's just two different viewpoints, and he's handling it very well and very graciously, because she's asking questions that are just old. They're just old news. So here we go.
who founded who was the first person to run Bitcoin beyond Satoshi Nakamoto 16 years ago. He said Bitcoin's high-powered money, issued as digital cash. And that's what we see Stretch as, this high-powered money. And if we can issue Stretch, and remember, you were talking about yields earlier in the conversation before this. Stretch is 11% yields backed by Bitcoin. If we can issue that, and we use that to buy Bitcoin, which is what we do, then we're providing amplification to increase Bitcoin per share. And that's what causes our valuation to be higher than Bitcoin.
All right. Fong Lee, of all the week, this is like a battleground week. And the fact that you are.
And also to this point with like, the fact that they are doing this, there's the flip side of it where you do have like Stretch is a great product. It's, paying about 11% out. It's going to eat up a lot of the fixed income marketplace, but it's going to take time for this to really, settle into the world and for people to understand and for strategy to really gain credibility universally or globally, because this is still a new company in terms of its strategy over the last 5 years of accumulating Bitcoin. These new products of Stretch and Strike and Stride, paying out 8, 9, 10, 11% don't make sense to people because it's counter to how the traditional marketplaces work. So this is going to take some time for people to latch onto this, but it doesn't make the long-term view on strategy any less powerful, because this company is just a behemoth. It's extraordinary what they're doing for the long term again. All right. For the long term. Again, the stock is super volatile and their goal is to accumulate more and more Bitcoin. It's accretive for the shareholders, but we also know the upside volatility is a rocket and the downside is a total freaking shit show when it goes down. And that's what happened in 2020 and 2021. If you were living through this like I was and you watched it, I bought my first shares of strategy back in 2021. And so if you were watching the company now, then you would have observed when Bitcoin went down to $16,000 in 2021 or 2022, I should say, strategy tanked all the way down as well. And so Bitcoin, that was what, over an 80% drop. We now have about a 50 something percent drop in Bitcoin at this point. So we haven't quite gone down to the 80% drop, but you need to pay attention for this volatility. And it also doesn't change the fact that strategy could go lower. So I personally don't have a short-term outlook on what's going to happen in 2026. I have a long-term outlook for Bitcoin and strategy, but I am trading it based on technical charts and technical analysis in the short term. And that's the only thing I'm doing. I don't have any outlook on it short term, except I'm trading it. I'm going to pick up more shares and make more money. That's it. And I'm using technical analysis and charts to do it. Everything else that I'm hearing in terms of what's going to happen in 2026, anything that I learn of what's going to happen in 2026, I'm not paying attention to, because I think it's so uncertain right now what's going to happen with Bitcoin, MSTR, BMNR, and Ethereum. I'm just trading the charts right now, and I'm just looking at 4 or 5 year time horizons. I know what's going to happen with these stocks, and I know what's going to happen with BMNR and Ethereum. I think it's going to be a rocket ride. But in the short term, I don't think anybody's viewpoint is really rock solid at this point, because we're in new territory. So with that said, let's hear the rest of what Fong Lee has to say.
For coming on to give a clear answer to your intentions about Bitcoin, as it has one of its worst weeks in recent memory. We very much appreciate. Thanks for joining us.
There you
go.
Fong Lee is the CEO of Strategy.
So there you go.
Jack Cool here. If you found
So that's a little perspective from Fong Lee on MSTR. And if you're just joining us, I'm going to do a recap on what I'm doing with MSTR and BMNR and how I'm trading it right now. So I will do that recap right now for those of you who are joining us live. And I'm going to show you the charts of how I'm using it. So if you look at these charts right now, this is Bitcoin on the 2-hour time frame. And this is a good chart to watch. So I watch Bitcoin to see what's happening. So you can see when it goes yellow to blue here, this is when to get in. And when it goes blue to yellow, this is when to get out. Now, I'm not trading Bitcoin like this at all. I'm just trading MSTR and BMNR right now. So I'm going to show you how I'm trading MSTR, since we're just on that, and also BMNR. Again, very, very simple. I'm looking at the 2-hour charts. I've been trading BMNR for 6 months, but what I'm doing on strategy is completely adjusting my strategy with strategy, because I'm starting to trade it again, because I'm not going to sit here and watch strategy potentially go down even lower without being able to pick up more shares and make money off strategy. Okay, so here's what's happening in the short term. If you look at these charts, I'm doing it on a 2-hour time frame. This is a very, very simple trading strategy, super simple. It's not something that I do on the daily. It's something that can be done placing trades every 2 to 6 days. Now, just a recap of what we did in the beginning. If you look at this right now, 2-hour time frame, this is Trading View and Invest Answers indicators. That's how you get this. Here, when it goes to yellow to blue, you buy back in. And if you looked at this price point on February 6th, this is where strategy had its big dump. The indicator doesn't come back in until the blue line gets thick here. This is when I get back in the position. And around 116 or so, it's telling you to get back in the position. You ride it all the way up, and until it goes yellow over here. That's when you get out of the position. The signal to get out of the position was right around here at $131, $132. So you get in at 117 and you get out at $132. All right. So that's how I'm trading this right now. It's very simple. If you look at this recently too, you would have gotten out at right around 132. You rode it all the way down here, and it doesn't tell you to get back into strategy until about 126, 125. And then you ride that back up. And now we're sitting at $134 on strategy. Okay, we'll see what happens on Tuesday of how it opens, because Monday the markets are closed. But this is a very, 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 very simple trading strategy. It's super, super accurate. And I've been studying these charts, particularly on BMNR, and using these charts. MSTR has been very accurate over the last several weeks. So I'm still, very much paying attention to how it does over the upcoming weeks. So my certainty in trading MSTR is high, but my certainty in trading BMNR is even higher, because the accuracy on these charts for the last 3 months that I've been sharing with my community is extremely accurate on BMNR. And if you watch this here and you take a look at these charts here, this position here, this was on January 29th, where it tells you to get out of BMNR. And this comes in when BMNR was sitting at around 28, 29 bucks. You get out and you ride this all the way down. And this is just not like over January. If you go back to December, extremely accurate. Okay. And you would have stayed out of BMNR. I was out of this position this entire time. I think I might have jumped back in for a daily trade at one point, but I was out of the position for a while. And then you don't get back in until here, which this point here, if you look at the blue line, you get back in around $18.60 for BMNR. So if you're out of that position and you wanted to pick up more shares, that would have been a 30% pickup on more shares. Pretty massive, right? And then if you go back and you're like, okay, well, I want to buy in and sell out of BMNR, which I have a lot of friends who are doing this. They're buying in. When it goes blue, the line turns blue, you buy in. So this price point would have been about $28.30 for BMNR. And then you would have sold out when it's yellow over here to the right. Pull this position here. You would have sold out when it's yellow. You look over to the right here, you would have sold out probably right around here, around 29 bucks. So you pick up a nice, like maybe 2% on that trade. And that's over the course of, wow, it's over the course of what, like 2 days? All right. So most of the trades average anywhere from 2 to 6 days of what I'm seeing in terms of trading this. So I'm placing trades on this. If I'm following the 2 hour every 2 to 6 days, sometimes I trade daily on this too to pick up shares. But if you want my trading strategy, you can grab it down below. I refuse to sit here and be effect to the markets just continuing to drop, which is why I trade. And here's another signal here where you would have sold out of BMNR here. Oh, that's the one I just showed. Let's go back and show you another signal. We can go back and I can show you the dates to show you this is not like a one-time thing. For months, this has been going on with this 2 hour chart. Look how clean the lines are. Blue to yellow, yellow to blue. It's super clean. So here's another one. Let's just say this is one to tell you to buy into BMNR. This comes back into, if you look down below at the date down here, it shows you December 31st. It starts to go yellow to blue. I don't pay attention to it when it's thin blue because you get faked out. Only when it gets thick blue is when I get in the trade. And this shows you January 2nd, it's thick blue at $28 in BMNR. You enter the trade, you ride it all the way up, and then you don't get out until it's thicker yellow here at $31. That is about a 10% win on BMNR. And that is from January 2nd here to all the way January 7th here to the right, where you would have gotten out of the trade again. This is how I'm trading it. This is what I've been doing, studying these charts to figure out, since we are in a bear, it seems, and who knows? Some people are talking, Tom Lee's talking about a V-shaped recovery. I'm just assuming we're in a bear. And so I'm going to trade the volatility and I'm going to make money doing this. And I'm also going to pick up more shares of BMNR and more shares of MSTR as well. So I'm trading both ends of the spectrum on it, and this is how this is my plan for the next several months in 2026 is just to keep doing this. So that's a little technical analysis. If you're just joining, you can go down below. You can go get my book, which is called Money Game. You can get that 100% free. You can also, if you want my technical analysis and how I'm trading, you can go down below, get the book, and you get a free video on exactly how I'm trading BMNR. You can snag it down below. It just shows you my trading strategy. If you want to get access to charts like this, Invest Answers is what I use, and I use TradingView. Okay. If you want my strategy of how I'm trading BMNR, that's down below, and I show you how to do it. So that's the game. In summary, what I just shared at the beginning of the video, Goldman Sachs owns more Bitcoin and Ethereum than it does gold. So we're looking at Goldman Sachs being bullish on it. We have BlackRock that just bought more shares of BMNR. They now have 9 million shares. We have 30% of the Ethereum that is being staked in terms of the total supply of Ethereum, which is massive. We haven't seen that before. And we have BMNR and MSTR continuing to acquire more of Bitcoin, respectively, for MSTR and for BMNR, respectively, Ethereum. And you see them continue to acquire in the marketplace. And so we have a long-term bullishness in terms of the viewpoint of institutions continuing to lock in and buy, but we have short-term major volatility, major bearishness, and nobody knows which way the price is going to go next. But that's why I show you the technical analysis of how I'm trading. So I hope this serves you. At the end of the day, none of this is tax advice, financial advice, or legal advice. But I hope this serves you, and I hope you're winning in your life, and I hope things are going well for you, and hang tight during this tough time. I'll see you on the other side.